The seat time now is 17 minutes past 8. More than half of us in the UK are affected by a skin condition every year. But health experts say the mental impact of living with diseases such as acne or psoriasis may not be fully understood.
A 3-year study has found that young people in particular are often finding their mental and physical health suffers, with some even considering suicide. Jane McCubbin has been to meet one young woman who says acne ruled her life.
For 10 years, heavy makeup was Sarah's mask.
It didn't necessarily look good, but anything was better than my skin being on show. First thing that I thought of in the morning was about my skin, so I'd put my hands to my face, I'd check over my skin, and I'd be able to tell from doing that whether it was a good day or a bad day. It ruled my life.
No pictures exist of how bad Sarah's skin was. She wouldn't allow any to be taken. Every year, 54% of the population is affected by a skin condition. Conditions like acne, like psoriasis, like eczema. 85% of those sufferers say they suffer psychological effects as well. It's linked to low self-esteem, self-harm, even suicide.
It was really distressing. It was a very, very difficult time in her life.
Her family understand this all too well.
My dad had psoriasis, has psoriasis still, and had it very badly as a young man, and he did have a nervous breakdown.
But now Sarah is taking part in a new study. Its aim is to help sufferers cope better with more psychological support.
Do you feel that if you'd had an opportunity to do that kind of thing when you were 14, 15, 16, it would have made a big difference?
Yeah, I wish I would have had that opportunity. With people my age that I could identify with, talking in my sort of language, I wish I'd have had that chance, yeah.
Sarah Fletcher there, ending that report by Jane McCubbin. Well, we're joined now by Dr. Bundy from the University of Manchester, who worked on that study about the psychological effects of living with a skin condition, and the comedian Toby Hadoke, who lives with psoriasis. Good morning to you both.
Morning.
Morning. Toby, I imagine that piece was quite resonant for you in many senses, because you have psoriasis.
Yeah.
But you've actually experienced comments while you've been performing.
Oh
about,
yes,
about your psoriasis.
Yeah, I was once in a play where I was just background scenery in one scene where I just had ragged trousers on and a blanket around me, so I was topless. It brings the punters in, and and halfway through I got a throat infection, and psoriasis tends to be precipitated by because it's not a skin condition, it's an autoimmune thing. So if you get a sore throat, your immune system targets the throat. Mine just goes, I don't know what to do, and my skin had a massive outbreak. And just as I came off from the scene, a bloke sitting there, I was quite close to the audience, turned to his wife and said, "Oh God, that was horrible. That's not catching." And he knew that I knew that he could hear me, and it wasn't so much the fact that he was appalled by it. It was the fact that he felt comfortable enough to say it within earshot of me.
Well, Toby, you've gone into a job which is performing in public.
Yes.
I mean, you're clearly very confident talking about it here. But what about the effect maybe earlier on when you were younger? How has it affected you more generally? Because one of the things we're talking about here in this report is the impact it can have on people.
Well, why? Yeah, I mean, it's a condition that makes you feel not terribly good about yourself. So, yes, why would somebody with low self-esteem do a job which requires the vocal affirmation of total strangers on a nightly basis? You tell me. You know, it is. I guess we all have ways of dealing with how that we feel. Performance is an age-old way of overcoming that.
Psychologically, though, when you heard that comment from that member of the audience, I mean, do you think you're quite robust and you can back that off? Or...
No, it's horrible. No.
Because it adds a different element to having a condition such as psoriasis, doesn't it?
Yes, it wasn't the fact. It was more the fact that he felt that sort of common humanity was not something that I was necessarily deserved anymore, because I looked repellent.
And this is the problem, Christine, isn't it? When people perhaps go to their GP or seek medical advice, often they feel, well, I'm going to be treated for the condition, but actually there's more to it than that. So whose responsibility is it? Because it's hardly enough for the patient to say, I need my psoriasis treated or eczema, to then say, and I feel awful, I feel rubbish about this, it's making me feel bad.
That's right. It's incredibly difficult when you're living with a very visible skin condition that people comment on, to then go forward and ask for additional help. for it. And I think that we have a job of work to do with general practitioners in particular, because they don't see some of the psychological effects very easily, to raise awareness with them about how awful it is for a proportion of people living with skin conditions. Not everybody with a skin condition doesn't cope very well. Most people do. But there's a significant proportion, about a third of people who don't cope at all well, and that's the group of people who are very vulnerable. As Toby said, we need to encourage them to develop the coping skills that will enable them to go out into the world, face it, and manage it. Initially, front it off, but then to internalise some of those feelings and increase their self-esteem.
Why do you think it is that Toby, the description Toby gave of why people feel it's okay to say things out loud in that situation, or just make them obvious in their actions?
Well, who knows? I think one of the difficulties is nobody sets out to be particularly unpleasant or difficult, but it's almost like a vocal tic. It's something that they just exclaim when they see, because they're not used to seeing it, because they are fearful of it, and their reaction is to comment on it. But what we need to do with the campaigns that both Toby and I are involved with, and the Shout Out campaign that we're running in Manchester, is to raise awareness across the board with the general public, with people living with a skin condition themselves, and medical practitioners, particularly GPs, that it is their responsibility to ask patients, and how well are you coping with this condition? How is it having an effect on your life? And more importantly, how can I help you to cope better?
Did anyone ever ask you, Toby, from the medical profession?
Yes, it took about 25 years, and I remember, and this is partially what brought me into contact with Dr. Bundy, was I remember the first time I was told by a consultant, it's not acceptable that you live like this, because I'd lived with it for 25 years, with the pain and the physical discomfort and the outward manifestation of it. And I just had creams and creams to deal with the results of it. And I went to see this brilliant consultant who said, oh no, we can manage this. And it was like suddenly this huge weight lifted off my shoulder. And I've seen a dermapsychologist as well, and understanding because there's that thing of people go, oh, is it stress related, as a sort of all correct. But I used to sort of think, well, no, that's just nonsense. Why would how I feel inside affect my skin? And then this psychologist said, well, what do you do when you get scared? I said, oh, I get goosebumps. He said, what do you do when you're embarrassed? Oh, I blush. Yeah, of course, it's all tied in psychologically. And when you can start to unpick that and understand it, well, understanding is all, and then it's not in control of you.
Very interesting. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course, you can get more information, find out where to get support online at the British Skin Foundation.